So hi, welcome back. We're off on the next stage of the Shay kit, and this time we're looking at stage 8, which is detail parts on the Smokebox. So I've added 2 little support brackets and a flange for one of the dummy steam pipes. Various pipes come off these little bits and pieces here. I did have to clean through the holes to get these parts in. Some of them are quite small, and we trim the insides so that when we put the insulation and the stainless baffle in, it's got enough room to get in there. So I'm just trimming back some of these little pieces. They're quite easily trimmed with a pair of pliers. Just give them a wiggle and they snap off. Obviously, once they're already in place, make sure the nuts are tight. And that should complete that stage. So we're on to page 9, and this involves actually fitting the boiler onto the chassis. So it'll be quite a new thing when it's all done. But we're starting off on the instructions by gluing the insulation to the inside of the smoke box. But I'm not going to do that, I'm going to just fit it later. I don't think it actually needs gluing. We'll see how we get on. So the first item on the actual instructions are to put this plate in the bottom, and the boiler will actually screw through these 2 little holes here, and you're only using the outside screws at the moment. And then we've got to get this exhaust pipe in. And even the instructions say this is a bit tricky, so we'll do a little bit of pipe wangling and see how we get on. It's got to go right through there, so I put it through between the steam pipes here. Also, I've loosened the front screws on that stretcher because you won't get it in with the stretcher in place. So once the exhaust is in place, obviously the stretcher can be put back. And attaching it on its little banjo bolt to this side of the reversing block, which is just there. And I put a strip of PTFE around each side of the banjo bolt to seal it. So we'll just tighten that up and have a look at where we've got to. So before the boiler actually goes onto the chassis, I just have a quick look at this little bracket, which is the mounting for the front. So it goes on the boiler on those 2 screws there. In the first place, you've got to make sure the boiler band is the right way round, or otherwise this doesn't fit. So double check that. But we can't screw this on yet because the main exhaust pipe has to come through underneath and through the holes in the bottom of the smoke box. So just to demonstrate that, when you've got the chassis, I've still had to have that bracket folded down so I can get in with the little front support. So the boiler sits like so, and you can double check underneath that the holes line up in the bottom of the boiler, but don't put the screws in yet. First job is to get the exhaust through the hole, the correct hole, in the bottom of the smoke box, and there's a little nut to just hold it in place. So we'll see if we can pop that on, just to make sure that it all stays put. So I've got the nut on the exhaust just to hold it in place while I fit the front mounting bracket, and this is going to go underneath onto the base of the boiler, like so, and around, oh no, got it caught up, there we go. So that's sitting under the boiler both sides, and I'll bring that stretcher up so it's holding it in place. And now I've got to put the screws in here, and in order to make that a little bit easier, the boiler is still flexible enough to be able to lift it out of its out of the chassis at the back and get in there with the nuts. We've tightened up the nut on the exhaust system, so that's nice and tight inside the smoke box, and have also tightened the bolts on the mounting bracket. That bracket has to go the right way round. If you don't manage to get it the right way round, then the bolts underneath won't line up. You don't have to ask me how I know that. Also, don't forget to retighten these screws on that front stretcher. You'll notice I've taken some of the detail off the boiler, the dome and so on, because it's all quite vulnerable while you're doing all this manoeuvring. I've cut out the insulation material to go inside the smoke box. It's got to clear the bottom where the air holes are and the top where the chimney goes. And I've just pressed it in there over all the little nuts and bushes. The stainless steel baffle, the little magnet for the door closer, and the exhaust are now all in place. The exhaust needs to go on before the chimney. I've chosen the spark arresting chimney, a nice tall one, which is most similar to the one that's actually on the surviving Shay in Australia. So stage 10 is now done, and what I've done, I've added the toolbox, the handrails through the stanchions, the bracket for the headlight. And I did find it quite useful to just run a drill through some of these holes to get any paint out. And the last job to do is the smoke box door. Well, I haven't screwed it on yet, as you can see. So it consists of a front and a back. You have to drop in a little hinge pin to hold it all together. And then inside you've got insulation and a baffle plate and a little magnet. That goes up against the other magnet already fitted, but you've got to get the magnets the right way around, or otherwise it holds the door open instead of closed. And I did just run round this edge here with a file so that the door will open and close nicely. And I've just got two really tiddly screws to go in to complete that one. And I've been looking at the bunker at the back here, which is not fitted yet. So I'll take the top off the bunker, the gas tank goes in here, but before I do that I'm going to run some sealant round the inside, and then we can put some water in the tank, and it'll help to vaporise the gas in the gas tank. So I've put sealant all around the inside of the tender, and I'm just waiting for that to dry, and meanwhile I'm working on the gas tank that goes inside the tender. I fitted this little gas filler valve. Now that needs a special gadget to fit it, and it's just a piece of pipe with the ends filed to a point, and you can drop it onto the valve and just screw it in. Doesn't need any sealant, the O-ring should seal it sufficient. And then at this end we've got the olive, the nut and the gas pipe, and that will match up to this gas regulator valve. So that pipe will go in there. There's another olive and another nut. They don't need any sealant, you just do them up tight on final fixing. So the gas control valve has had these two O-rings fitted, a small one and an even smaller one, like those two. And then a little spot of oil, and it assembles into the main body, like so. There we go. So the outlet from that valve goes into this gas pipe, and there's also like a spring protector that goes out around the outside of the pipe, and then it goes onto the jet holder and the jet itself. So I'll be assembling them next, and these little spring clips make a gas tight seal on the end of the pipe. Here's the gas tank all in place along with its pipe work. I found it best to put the copper pipe on first and then disassemble the whole gas valve assembly while you fit the flexible pipe. It's almost impossible to do it in situ. And then put it all back on. And just to finish off stage 11, I put the sandboxes on the back, They're quite unusual. You don't normally get sandboxes on the back of the bunkers, but in this instance this engine's got driving wheels under it, and then the top can just go straight back on, and we're done on stage 11. See you on the next video.